So we see so much online now about the benefits of meditation, and we can read about what it does for you and how great it is. But what's the difference between reading it, knowing it, and actually committing to a practice? What makes someone actually do the work? Because it's a big difference between knowing something in our mind, like knowing it theoretically because we've read about it, but what makes someone actually consistently commit to doing it is because they've had the experience of what it has to offer. Scientifically, we can Google so much around what it has to offer, but experientially, after speaking to a client today about what really creates security for us, is it when we have six-figure jobs? In our mind, that's what it is. But when it really came down to it with her, it was being in a loving relationship, experiencing love for the first time, which has totally jump-started her spiritual growth. And that's where I came in. And so the experience of meditation that actually gets us to commit to doing it every day is firstly an act of grace. But secondly, it's really that experience of love. When we feel safe, when we feel secure, when we feel that love, we keep going back because we know that's where home is. However, for most of us, when we've lived so far away from our own internal compass, our own internal home, we've continuously made choices throughout our life that were based on what our society expected of us, or whatever our parents expected of us, or any of our core wounds. We allowed our fears and our wounds to be stronger than that sensation of home, because that home is really something in the unknown. It's really like, even if we grew up in a certain dynamic in our family, in our hometown, whatever, that might be familiar, but that doesn't mean it's home. And that familiarity is what so many of us live in and day out. We live in here. We live in the noise, and we don't even know we're living in noise. We're so used to living in noise that the concept of silence, we're like, of course that's silence. I know what silence is. Until you actually experience silence. And that experience, that sense of home, that sense of love, of security, of okay. I'm okay. Like, not even language for it, of okayness. That is what will draw you back to continue to meditate, to continue to do the practice. So when we live so deep in the noise, often when we begin to meditate, what comes up, of course, is the noise. We start to become aware of all the shit we've been living in, and it's like really confronting, because we're like, oh no, that's not who I am. I'm a positive person. I'm nice. I'm hardworking. I'm accepting. We're all these great things, until we actually start to become aware of what the noise in our head is saying, and learn, oh my God, where did all these negative thoughts come from? Oh my God, where did all this judgment come from? Where did all this negativity? Whose thoughts are these? Our natural voice is love. That's when we're born into the world, our natural voice is love. Everything else has been taught to us. So when we start to meditate and we become aware of everything that we've been taught, it's so important to remind ourselves that we are the container for that. That's not who we are. It's kind of like when you have like soda or even any kind of drink, but especially a carbonated drink, and you shake it up. And then after you shake it up, what happens? All the bubbles, like all the stuff comes up, and like sometimes the cap will explode if you really have a lot in there and you shook it up a lot. But I mean, anyways, everything comes up to the surface now, doesn't it? And so the same thing happens when we're meditating. But the important thing to notice is that if we identify with being the soda and we're riding that roller coaster, like, oh my God, we don't know where this is going. Ah. And that's so real. It's so real. It's not to be made fun of or even taken. I mean, it's to be taken lightly only when we have perspective on it. But when you're in it, it's not light. It's real. There's nothing more real. But it's just a gentle reminder that we're that container. We're the soda bottle. We're not the soda. We're not everything that's moving. We're watching what's moving. We're holding the space for everything to move, because movement is life. That's what life is. If you look outside in nature, life is growing, life is constantly evolving, life is constantly moving. But we can use this vessel we have of a mind and a body and a heart to hold space. And that's what meditation is. And it's not this new age, like, I'm holding space and like, let's connect and let's integrate and embody. I mean, these things are all actually very real, but when we overuse this kind of language, it loses its meaning. And so it's important, if you use that language, and you do it, great. It's important, but it can be overused in some circles and not actually practiced. And so regardless of the language you use around what to do, the important thing is that you're doing it, right? And so by doing it, what I'm talking about is meditating. So what I can offer for those of you who are beginning or really new, or just you've tried it and you're like, I don't know, this is not for me, or maybe you're in a class, a yoga class or a meditation class, and like, oh my God, your impatience is coming, you're noticing the impatience, you're noticing anger and fear and projecting and externalizing and blah and whatever else is coming up. If we can start to train our minds to notice that this is the soda coming up to the surface, the stuff that's been in there and has probably been guiding our lives in more situations than just that yoga or meditation class, and notice it and still be the bottle for that, still be the space for it. Be like, okay, I'm noticing impatience. Thank you. And that's the practice, because reconnecting to ourselves, to our home, comes as we practice. It may not come in the first 5 minutes. First 5 minutes might be a lot of noise. But guess what? That is so important to sit with that noise, to be like, ooh, this is what's happening in here. I have so many clients asking me, like, they're not sure if they're meditating right. Like, am I doing it? You're doing it if you can understand that you are not that. So if you can experience your thoughts, your emotions, whatever's happening, and just say, okay, there's a lot coming up for me right now. I'm noticing some impatience. I'm noticing frustration. I'm noticing fear. I'm noticing grief. I'm noticing happiness, like whatever it is, anything. If we can notice it and let it come up and give ourselves space to let it come up without being that, without reacting and identifying as that, even if we don't think we are that type of person. That's not necessarily what I mean by identifying with it. What I mean is, if we ride that wave of emotion, fully in the emotion of like, oh, I'm impatient, and then you start, projecting that on the situation around you and blaming or internalizing it, projecting it inwards in a way, that in and of itself is identifying with it. Then you're letting it take over you. The practice of meditation is to slowly just continue to come back to the breath, or continue to come back to a mantra if you use that style of meditation, and come back to the space, come back to the sensations in the body, any kind of meditation that you use, and recognize that you're not that. You're just holding a space for that. That's where your power comes in. Otherwise, we're leaking our power. We're giving it away to an emotion that's fleeting. We're not sad all the time. We're not happy all the time. We're not impatient all the time. And we know that. But until then we know it in our hearts, that can only happen if we hold a space for it. And it's a practice. It doesn't come with 5 minutes of meditation. It comes with consistency. It comes with commitment. But every time we practice, if we use this mindset around what is actually happening for us, we can actually create and cultivate an internal environment where we're holding space for what's coming up for us. And in that space, slowly but surely, promise we will all return home to ourselves and return to that feeling of safety and security and love that has nothing to do with what's in your bank account, with what job you have, with what partner you have, with where you live, with anything that you decide to do with your life. What it has to do with is what is happening within and how you feel within and responding to that internal voice. But we need to learn how to quiet the mind, not by forcing it to be silent, but just by allowing it to be and holding space for it. Slowly we'll be able to find our true voice. So this is the practice of meditation, and this is the value in it. But I can talk your hair off. I can talk your ears off. I can talk your eyes off. I can talk you to death if I wanted to about the value of meditation. And that's great. That serves a purpose. But the truth of the matter is, unless we sit down and we do it and we slowly cultivate an environment, an internal environment where we can actually experience it, that experience is what will continue to bring us back, And it's, for most of us, an experience that we've never had before. Experience of real home, it's so foreign. But we don't know that it's foreign because we live in what's familiar. So if you have any questions or you want to get started on meditation, just shoot me a message and I'd love to help you get started.